Chapter 7, Get Her Back. Alexa's POV. Alexa, huh? The sneer in her voice yanked me from my thoughts. I turned to see Elle striding toward me, eyes glinting with something almost wicked. I don't know how you two know each other or why he thinks you're special, but you heard him, yeah? From now on, you answer to me. Her words dripped with authority and a strange kind of playfulness that made my skin prickle, a knot building in my stomach. There was something off about Elle, a plot simmering in her gaze, a cold curve in her smile. I swallowed hard, suddenly nervous. From now on, you'll follow my every order. Elle reached out and traced her fingers gently across my cheek as she stepped closer. But don't worry, I'll treat you well as long as you do the same for me. In this pack, I'm the second in command. Second in command? I echoed before I could hide my bafflement, tilting my head to the side. She's as strong as that? And Ezekiel? He'd accept a woman as his second? What? Don't believe me? Elle's flirtatious grin vanished, a frown replacing it. I hurriedly bowed. No, I believe you, Elle. Before I could finish, she pressed a finger to my lips, silencing me. Call me Madame Elle. I had no other choice. Her power and her obvious resentment pressed down on me, every muscle rigid with instinctive submission. Her menacing smile said it all, one step out of line, and she'd slap me down quick and hard. Yes, Madame Elle, I forced the words out, head bowed low. Humiliation burned, but I'd been through worse before. Compared to the way I'd been treated in my old pack, this was almost familiar. Good girl. Her lips curled in satisfaction, and she pivoted away. Nira, Farah, show her to her chamber. Without sparing me another glance, she added, make sure she's ready for training tomorrow. She stalked off, laughter, soft but with an edge, trailing in her wake. When she disappeared, two women in crisp-made uniforms glided up, bowing slightly. Miss Alexa, please follow us, Nira said with a kind smile, gesturing ahead. Farah fell in beside her, and I tagged along, curious but cautious as we walked. As we moved through the corridors, I half expected the maids' friendliness to fade, but instead they talked freely, and soon I found myself learning not just their names, but snippets about daily life in the village. Unnerving at first, it wasn't long before their easy chatter eased my nerves. Against all odds, I started to feel a little less alone. Finally, we stopped before a sturdy wooden door. Nira and Farah flanked it, heads high, one on each side. This will be your chamber, Miss Alexa. You may come and go as you wish, Farah said gently. I breathed out, relieved. Thank goodness, finally, somewhere to sleep. I reached for the doorknob, heart thumping, then pushed inside. My breath caught. A small room, barely touched by sunlight through a narrow window. Just a hard single bed, a little table, and a closet. The walls and floor looked like they hadn't seen proper repairs in years. I traced the chipped paint with my eyes and swallowed the cold ache pressing in. This was exactly the kind of room reserved for omegas, or worse, the ones where it always lived and as familiar as a scar. Author's POV. Savage Tyranny Pack. Meeting room. Thud. Alpha Lawrence slammed his fists into the table, a jarring crack splitting the tense silence. The blow echoed through the hall, and shivers swept through all present. His eyes caught every one of them, glinting ice blue with a deadly cold. So, who do I hold responsible for this? No one made a sound. The fear was thick enough to choke on. They all knew better than to blurt out something that might make the Alpha's anger boil over. But as the silent seconds dragged, a bead of sweat slid down Gimbel's temple. Finally, a nervous pack member dared to stammer, but we never realized she was the Pink Luna. If we'd only. Enough. Alpha Lawrence's snarl cut him off like a whip. The man shrank, stiff with terror, and blurted an apology. Please forgive me, Alpha. A different voice spoke up, This one calm, firm. Let's not pretend, Gimbal said. As elder and advisor, his tone was measured even under pressure. It's true we didn't know the orphan was the Pink Luna, but every one of us here, without exception, agreed to sell her. We have no one to blame but ourselves. Gimbal locked eyes with Lawrence, unwavering. Rather than circle around blame, we need to act. Get her back before any other pack realizes who she is. The news hasn't spread yet, so our window is small. If even a whisper reaches the others, it'll be chaos. Lawrence sat unmoving, his face stormy. Silent for a long moment, he finally turned, ice melting just enough for focus to slip through his voice. Say, Joel, you sold her. You took the profit. Now it's your responsibility. Get her back, no matter what it takes. I won't tolerate more mistakes. Beta Miguel struggled to keep his tone steady. Yes, Alpha, he managed to reply. His teeth clenched as frustration roiled inside. Never, not once, would he have guessed that the girl, the outcast orphan, would become the Pink Luna. The prophecy's revelation the night before had rocked everyone to their core. All along, she'd been just goods to be sold, now a burning headache. Miguel's knuckles whitened on his chair as he nodded, vowing to himself, that girl's caused me enough trouble for a lifetime. This time, I'll make damn sure I bring her back from those cursed slavers. Chapter 8, Punished. Alexa's POV. Miss Alexa! Miss Alexa! The urgent call echoed in my ears, dragging me half awake. It sounded frantic, almost desperate, like someone trying to rouse me with news I wouldn't want to hear. For a hazy second, I wondered if I'd gone back to being a servant. She's not hearing you. Be louder, a voice whispered, tinged with anxiety. I can't. If she wakes up mad, the Alpha will finish me off. Did you forget what happened last time? The other replied in an uneasy hush. Alpha? Which Alpha? I'd never dare make Alpha Ezekiel's woman angry. Alpha Ezekiel. That's right. I'm in Ezekiel's territory now. The realization jolted me fully awake, the sunlight streaking mercilessly across my tiny room. I squinted, groaning. What the morning already? Surprise tightened my chest. I leapt off the bed, moving clumsily in alarm. Oh no! If I'm late again, that awful woman will make sure I regret it. Sorry, Nara. Farah. I'm up. Sorry to keep you waiting. I hollered while hurrying to the closet. I pulled on a pair of joggers, a sports bra, and my rubber shoes as fast as I could. My pink hair went into a rushed ponytail, hands shaking from nerves. Out in the hall, Nira and Farah waited, faces tight with worry. I couldn't help but blurt out as I jogged up, "Am I late for training already?" The two exchanged a precarious look. Sweat beaded on their foreheads. It's already past 10, Miss Alexa, Nira answered, tapping her cheek hesitantly with her finger. Training started at 7. You're a whole 3 hours late, Farah added quietly, copying the anxious gesture. What? My heart stopped. Why didn't you wake me earlier? We tried, Miss Alexa. You were completely exhausted. We thought we should let you rest a bit longer, Nira explained, her voice sorry but honest. I barely heard her. Panic fueled me now. Then what are we waiting for? Let's hurry to the training grounds. I didn't stop to see if they followed. My feet raced ahead. I knew the training ground's location by heart now. The training ground burst into view after only a few minutes sprinting. The place was swarming with people, all training under one scathing watch. Madame L. She stood center field, arms instinctively folded across her chest. Oddly, for a moment, activity on the field slowed. Everyone went utterly silent, turning to stare at me. But as swiftly as their eyes fixed on me, they cut away again, almost as if they were afraid just to look for too long. I put their strangeness out of my head, determined just to get through this. I strode over to Madame L and bowed my head slightly, greeting her. Madame L. But I wasn't allowed to finish. Run 50 laps. L's cold command landed like ice water on my skin. She didn't even bother to look my way, but the warning in her tone was hard to miss. This wasn't a suggestion. 50 laps? Around this entire field beneath the blazing sun? Was she trying to break me outright? A bitter smile twitched at my lips. I scratched my cheek nervously as I spoke. Excuse me, madam, but 50. 50 what? She snapped. She whirled on me, and her look made the hair on my arms lift. Do you want me to break your legs since you're not using them for anything else? My breath caught. The weight of her glare was nearly enough to freeze me in place. Was she actually serious? Had I made her this upset? All right. I barely managed to sound agreeable, even as I swallowed against the growing lump in my throat. 50 laps then. I could manage that. I kept telling myself, 50 laps. It's nothing. Just run. Chapter 9, Save Her Again. Alexa's POV. Damn it. Damn it. Honestly, to hell with everything. I screamed in my head as loudly as I could. After all my complaining, there I was, still obeying her ridiculous command, dragging a massive tire behind me as I ran laps around the training grounds. This was just my first lap, and I swear, I was losing my mind. No matter how I tried to justify it, this wasn't training. It was pure, relentless torture, a punishment that'd finish me off sooner or later. But what choice did I have? If I really wanted to get strong enough to take my revenge on the Savage Tyranny Pack, then this was it. I had to keep pushing through, no matter how harsh or hopeless it felt, even if it meant risking my own life. Because Savage Tyranny isn't your typical pack. They were the third strongest in this entire stretch of the Sierra Madre Mountains. Basically, no matter how hard I trained, there was still no way I could face them alone and win. That little girl without a wolf, she's doomed, someone said, their voice drifting through my exhaustion. I could hear them talking about me, their voices carried easily on this bleak morning. There's no chance she'll finish 50 laps with the tire her first day. It took us over a year to even come close, mate. Nearly killed us, too. Wait, was this training meant to be impossible from the start? Did that terrible woman just want to make a fool out of me? I stopped listening after a while. They started arguing, but then seemed to all decide to compete instead. Suddenly, they all sprinted, tires in tow, fierce and wild. In comparison, I was barely hanging on. Whatever effort I put in, I could barely even breathe, panting with no end in sight, drenched in sweat, my vision growing fuzzy on the edge of just blacking out. Hey, you. What do you think you're doing? An angry voice shattered my focus. I recognized it even before I looked. They belonged to Madame L, the terror of this place. She marched over, arms folded, brows drawn down so tightly it was almost comical if it weren't aimed all at me. You're only on your 10th lap and you dare stop to rest on my watch? Should I add another lap to your training? But by then, her words hardly made sense. My mind was spinning, thoughts blanking out fast. My stomach turned, a wave of sickness rising hot in my throat. Damn it. Did I really eat that much last night? I couldn't stop it. My face felt on fire and Madame L, unfortunately, was still right in front of me. Sorry, Madame L. Please forgive me. I could only offer a silent apology. And then spurt. Like a poorly timed fountain, everything came up and out. Multicolored splatters hit the dirt, the air, and most definitely all around my feet, and at Madame L's, unfortunately, too. You. Her voice was so icy that my insides froze in terror. pure rage carved across her face, lethal and absolute. You must have a death wish. Madame L couldn't hold it in any longer. Her roar sent a tremor straight through me, leaving me chalk white as if I'd been washed of all color. Then she shifted. In just moments, her human form changed into something extraordinary and terrifying, a wolf so huge it made horses look like dogs, her fur blindingly white as snow. I shuddered. The shock sent me stumbling back. In the end, I lost my footing completely and crashed to the ground. She advanced, massive paws slamming the earth, just barely missing me by a hairbreadth. The sheer force shook the ground, knocking what little strength I had right out of me. I hit the dirt again, too weak to even flinch now, with no strength or courage left to find. A vicious roar split the air, her jaws bared wide, huge canines flashing, fury behind her every movement as she lunged. Was she really about to finish me off? I tried to get up from the ground, but my legs simply wouldn't move. Knees buckled. I could only kneel, watching as death itself closed in. Was this it? Was I about to be eaten? Someone, quick, stop Madame L. If that girl gets hurt, or worse, dies, the alpha will be out for blood. Hell, what are we even supposed to do here? Why did she make Madame L so angry in the first place? This whole thing is a disaster. Panic split through the gathered pack. Everyone wanted to help, but not a damn one of them had the guts to get between a rabid L and her target. Unbelievable first day of training, and here I was, staring down doomed fate. Clearly, the moon goddess had a warped sense of humor. With nothing but dread left, I closed my eyes and surrendered. Swoosh. She was on me, the distance between us gone. Even with my eyes squeezed shut, every instinct screamed she was there. But something was wrong. Her blow never landed. Instead, the air changed. Not L. Not anymore. A new presence, a different power stood in front of me. I felt it, sharp as a cut, familiar and commanding. Slowly, I peeled open my eyes. And there he was, shirtless, back to me. His skin streaked with that wild cyan fur, blue hair catching in the wind. I didn't have to blink or rub my eyes. I knew instantly who he was. Ezekiel Drazel. With just his hand, he'd broken through her madness and pulled Elle to a standstill, his grip locking firm on her massive, snarling wolf jaw. The strength rolling off him, it let me see just how fathomless Ezekiel's power truly was. Elle. You've got courage. Ezekiel's voice echoed with deadly chill, his gaze hidden but unmistakably cold. Are you defying me now? Looking for trouble, are you? Chapter 10. Treat her as your Luna. Not long ago, Ezekiel was in the temple, searching for answers from the goddess. All across the world, there are places, mysterious, almost hidden, where statues of the goddess of the moon rise up for strangely forgotten reasons. Her presence is strongest in these sites. Here, one could reach her directly, seeking blessings or revelations. Maybe that's why the largest and strongest pack seized these spots, building temples to cover the sacred statues and claiming them as their territories. Ezekiel stood, unmoving, before the sacred statue. In his right hand, he held a slip of parchment scrawled with ancient words. With deliberate care, he recited the text aloud. Then, without hesitation, a single, razor-sharp claw extended from his finger. He slashed his wrist. Blood spurted in a rapid crimson flow, soaking into the parchment. The slip turned vivid red. At once, the bloody parchment drifted into the air, straight toward the statue's chest. It vanished without leaving a single trace. Speak. The statue's voice crashed through the temple, cold, oppressive, ancient. Anyone else would have dropped to their knees, cowed by the sheer power of the goddess's presence. Ezekiel stood upright, his gaze just as cold, shoulders squared, unflinching. So finally, you speak? Ezekiel's eyes narrowed. Even his tone felt carved from ice as he continued, reveal my fate, lead me to the pink Luna. There's no need to search for the pink Luna. As for your fate, you'll discover it soon enough. Ezekiel slammed his fist into his palm, knuckles whitening with frustration. Is that really your answer? I gave up years of my own life, and that's all the answer I get? Is this how you're repaying me? I could destroy another one of your statues. I've done it before, he spat, voice simmering with fury. The statue remained perfectly still, the voice calm and detached. I don't mind. I can be rebuilt. He pushed forward, trying to rein in his temper as his veins bulged along his fists and forehead. Stop speaking in riddles. Where is she, the pink Luna? He had to find her. Every moment that slipped away was one too many. Until he grew strong enough, he'd never get his bloody revenge against that wretched organization, not alone, but with the pink Luna by his side, his chances soared sky high. Sensing the desperation swirling off him, the goddess's statue seemed almost to sigh. Finally she spoke, teasing, I told you. You don't need to search. She's found already. A devious pause. And right now, she's in trouble. What? He started to demand another explanation, but an uneasy ripple shot up his spine. The air itself seemed to change. Instantly, he turned his attention to a wild, raging aura blooming outside the temple walls. Damn it! Ezekiel clamped his jaw and sprinted out, leaving the goddess and the statue cloaked in silence behind him. Elle, what the hell are you doing out there? He could sense it now. Elle had shifted into her wolf. Enemy attack? Something worse? Ezekiel rushed forward, rage burning through his thoughts, until, at last, he spotted Elle. With barely a glance, all became clear. Elle, half-shifted, wild, stood poised above Alexa, on the brink of delivering the killing blow. Ezekiel roared inwardly, You insolent wretch! How dare you! His body responded before his mind finished the sentence. Toes to shins to thighs bristled with dark fur, claws bursting at his barefooted feet. Blink on. In a flash he appeared directly between Elle and Alexa, his mate. In a single motion, Ezekiel lunged right in front of Elle, placing himself between the two women. Before she could even react, his hand shot up and clamped tight around her throat beneath her wolf jaw. Elle, cornered, convulsed, shrinking back, her wolf form collapsing until, at last, only her human body hung helpless in his grip. Gasps crackled through the watching crowd. To subdue another pack member without challenge, using sheer presence, was an intimidation reserved for only the deadliest alphas. He was beyond the end of his patience, and everyone could feel the tension snap tight. None of them knew what might come next, not with the infamous rogue alpha in a mood like this. Elle clung to his forearm, teeth grimacing, coughing desperately, doing anything she could to loosen his hand. Ezekiel, let me go. Pete, please. In the end, with nothing left, Elle went limp, begging for his mercy. Her eyes welled, disbelief twisting her voice that Ezekiel would go so far for Alexa, a woman she'd only just met. Why did this girl now matter more than anything? More than her? Elle, you've gone too far. Ezekiel's voice, frigid and steady, reverberated across the clearing. His whiplash gaze never left her squirming form. I told you to train her, not try to kill her. If it were anyone else right now, their head would be rolling across the ground. With that, he flung her to the ground. His cold, piercing eyes stayed glued to Elle, staring down at her like she was worth nothing. From now on, Alexa stays with me, Ezekiel barked, finality ringing hard through his voice, disappointment curdling beneath each word. He faced the crowd and voice turned thunderous, proclaimed, This is my last warning. Anyone who lays a finger on her prepares to deal with me. Treat her, from this day forward, as if she were your Luna. Chapter 11, Ezekiel Will Train Me? Alexa's POV. Let's go, Ezekiel called, waving me to follow. He didn't even bother to help me up off the ground. He just strode ahead, his back to me as if he'd already forgotten I was there. I didn't move right away. My mind spun, struggling to make sense of what had just happened. Ezekiel saving me was one shock, but wanting me to come with him? Commanding the entire pack to treat me as if I were there, Luna? What was he doing? Did he like me? No. Stop. Before my thoughts could spiral into fantasy, I shook my head hard, banishing the idea. Ezekiel was known as the most ruthless man around. Someone like him, caring for anyone, much less falling in love? Those kinds of fairy tales didn't exist for people like us. What in the world are you doing just lying there, spaced out like an idiot? His cold, impatient voice sliced through my thoughts. I jerked my eyes up to find him standing a few steps away, glare icy enough to freeze me where I sat. He gave a short, sharp sigh. Get up and move. Or do you want me to? I'm coming, I answered too quickly, stumbling to my feet. Just managing those 2 words took every scrap of courage I had. Gritting my teeth, I met his eyes and braved. Seriously, why are you always so harsh? Is it really so difficult to treat people kindly? My question sent ripples of shock through the gathered crowd. Ezekiel's eyes narrowed dangerously at me, his expression turning thunderous. Who was I to talk back to him? My stomach knotted in sudden panic. Maybe I just pressed my luck too far. Swallowing hard, forcing a polite or maybe desperate smile onto my face, I brushed awkwardly at my cheek. Forget it. Let's just go. I marched past him, ignoring the cold fury simmering in his gaze, pretending like I hadn't just snapped at the most dangerous man in the pack. Luckily, he merely turned and began walking without another word. We fell into step, silent. I kept my questions to myself, trailing behind him to what I assumed must be the center of the village, a cluster of trees I'd heard Nira and Farah whispering about. Ezekiel's personal chamber, apparently. Legend said hardly anyone in the pack had ever set foot in that little forest. A cold creep slithered up my spine, and goosebumps sprang up as uneasy shadows flitted across my mind. There were enough stories about men like him, dragging women to their beds, playing with them for sport. Without warning, Ezekiel stopped. Still refusing to glance at me, he asked, "Why are you letting yourself get beaten like that? Even if you are attacked, can't you at least fight back? Or are your fists just for show?" My chest tightened. Did he really think I wanted to be bullied, that I refused to fight back? Who talks like that? If I could, I'd sew his lips shut, just stop him. But I knew better than to challenge him head on, so I bit my tongue and answered quietly, "I'm just an Omega. No, less than that. I don't even have a wolf, and I know you noticed that." He prickled along my jaw as I forced myself to meet his gaze. So how exactly am I supposed to fight someone like her? You seriously expect me to take on a white giant? That's as good as suicide. Ezekiel finally turned to face me. With a disappointed click of his tongue, he spat out, "Pathetic." My jaw dropped. You. Words failed me. He'd never understand what it was to be powerless. He only shook his head, voice stern but steady. "If that's what you think strength is, you'll never have any. I want you to break that fragile mindset, Alexa." He advanced, intent. His eyes pinned mine, resolve burning cold. "From now on, I'm going to train you myself. Next time, if someone tries to hurt you, you'll be able to defend yourself, or at the very least, fight back. Get ready." Chapter 12. You're Still a Virgin. Alexa's POV. I stood there, stunned, barely able to process Ezekiel's words. I couldn't remember ever doing anything to earn his favor, and he definitely didn't owe me anything. Still, as I really considered his actions, it hit me. Ezekiel might have the worst attitude and the sharpest tongue imaginable, but he'd never actually hurt me. He hadn't let me suffer, at least not in ways I'd expected. But I couldn't ignore my doubts. "Why?" I asked, searching his face for any hint of an answer. "It's none of your concern. Just know that you'll be useful to me someday. so don't get the wrong idea. Ezekiel spoke with that usual, offhanded wave. Alexa, I corrected him quietly. I didn't understand where this sudden courage came from, talking back to someone this ruthless. Most people would freeze just being around him. For me, though, I actually felt safer with him nearby, as if he lent me some comfort in these exhausting, hopeless days. Whatever, Ezekiel said with that dismissive tone, turning away and striding ahead again. I just shrugged and followed as he led me through the trees until we reached a tiny wooden house tucked into the heart of the small forest. Small was almost an overstatement. The place barely had room for a single bed. No kitchen, no living space, just 4 wooden walls and a roof. Was this really where Ezekiel lived? That didn't seem right, I frowned, scanning the cabin. He stopped in front of the house, finally answering my unspoken question. You can stay here from now on. No one's going to bother you out here. So that was it. He hadn't brought me to his home. He'd made sure I had shelter of my own. Sigh. I should have guessed. I never knew what to expect from this man. Get changed and rest up. Afterward, we'll start training. He nodded toward the tiny house, then turned and headed toward a nearby pond. I'll catch some fish. Call me when you're ready. I watched him walk away, feeling something unfamiliar stir inside. He almost sounded concerned. What exactly was he planning? I sighed to myself and pushed off thoughts. No point overthinking things. Instead, I went inside the wooden house. Right now, all I wanted was to rest. My legs ached, and the rope burn on my waist still smarted. That miserable woman had tried to kill me not long ago. I couldn't stop the irritation that bubbled up. Ezekiel's POV. So, Katie's, what do you think? She's hopeless. There's no way she could be the pink Luna. She's just too fragile. I sent the words to Katie silently, frown etched deep across my brow. You're thinking too narrowly, Caddis replied, his voice calm even in my head. Strength isn't everything. Do you really believe the pink Luna is supposed to be the powerhouse herself? Don't forget, she's not meant to be the strongest in battle. She's meant to strengthen you. I scoffed, staring down at the still water. My skepticism didn't budge. She still needs to be able to protect herself. If she stays this weak, how will she survive without me? I can't always be her shield, no matter how much I might want to be. Sighing, I let my attention drift to the pond. There was a weathered old fishhook ready on a boulder. I grabbed it and flicked the line out across the water. The burn of impatience itched in my veins. And another thing, why hasn't her wolf awakened? How do we tap into the pink Luna's power if she doesn't even have a wolf form yet? Kadias was quiet a moment before replying. That's something I've wondered myself. Maybe there's a way to wake her wolf, something akin to the ritual for accessing the pink Luna's strength. His words dropped around me heavily. My cheeks grew warm. I could feel my pulse quicken. It made no sense. Did I really need to know? Damn it. This was too much. Tata seemed to sense my reaction. What are you getting flustered about, Ezekiel? This isn't like you. I'm not blushing. The words blurted out loud before I knew it, fierce and raw. My patience cracked, and my hand clenched tight around the fishhook. The winds whipped wildly across the water at a mere twitch of my muscle, turning the pond surface to chaos. Careful. At this rate, you'll ruin lunch altogether, Cadus chided. Then, teasing even harder, he continued, but now that I think about it, Ezekiel, you've never had sex, have you? So you're still a virgin. Who would have guessed, with all your bravado, the mighty Ezekiel is still so adorable. Don't push it, Caddis. My rage exploded with another shout, echoing across the pond. I slung the fishhook forward with all the pent-up fury brimming inside me. Water soared skyward in a powerful arc, higher than the trees, before the world stilled again. I sank back onto the stone, face blank, feeling drained and frustrated. How had I let something so trivial throw me off? It had been too long since I'd lost control like that. Anyway, don't mention this again, I grumbled inwardly, trying to pretend none of it mattered as I stared straight ahead, willing my pulse to steady. If you say so, Caddis replied, amusement running through his voice like quiet laughter. My fingers twitched. I fixed my gaze across the water, fighting down one more storm inside me, determined never to let anyone, especially Caddis, see me so shaken again. Chapter 13. Ezekiel slaughtered her family. Savage Tyranny Pack House. Slam. How could you fail to find her? Are you trying to test my patience, Beta Miguel? Alpha Lawrence's fist crashed onto the table, his anger igniting the room. News had spread. One of his most trusted men had failed to retrieve the pink Luna. He seethed, itching to snap his own Beta's neck. I'm sorry, Alpha Lawrence. It appears the human slavers were attacked by someone, and the pink Luna was taken from them, Beta Miguel stammered. Don't waste my time with excuses. Alpha Lawrence's glare cut through the room like a blade. If that's the case, why not catch whoever took her? Achoo, Beta Miguel faltered, sweat pricking at his brow. Just thinking of the person who snatched the pink Luna sent a chill through him, yet he dared not confess his fear. Alpha Lawrence would sooner behead him than accept such cowardice. What's with the hesitation, you coward? Speak up before I end your miserable existence right now. Lawrence's eyes began to gleam with a wolfish gleam, his intent deadly clear. Beta Miguel swallowed hard, forcing himself to speak through dry lips. With Alpha Lawrence at the height of his fury, only candor would save him. Ezekiel. Word is, Ezekiel Drazel stole the pink Luna from the slavers. Slam. What? That rogue scoundrel. Why would he interfere? Isn't he busy enough dealing with the dust howlers? Alpha Lawrence thundered, fist slamming the table again. Rage and apprehension wore across his face. He hadn't expected that notorious wild card to meddle in his affairs. Now everything seemed more complicated. He glanced around. The others in the meeting exchanged uneasy looks, the dread unmistakable on every face. What should we do now? Someone finally asked, anxiety heavy in the air. Ezekiel isn't your typical rogue. He's the only one who's wiped out an entire pack on his own, single-handedly. Gravelly voices echoed the cold truth. And no one knows where he really lives or lurks. Even if we wanted to fight him, how could we find him? There's no way to reach his ground. Murmurs of reluctant agreement filled the chamber. Retrieving the pink Luna from Ezekiel now seemed utterly impossible. Maybe we should consult the shrine of the goddess, someone suggested, drawing every eye. She'll know the pink Luna's whereabouts, even if we'll have to make a hefty offering. I'll go. Alpha Lawrence's patience snapped. He shoved away from the table, not waiting for approval, and stalked out of the meeting. A short time later, I offer thee my blood, and this refined witch's blood, please, heed my call, moon goddess, Lawrence intoned as he knelt. The others followed, bowing low in awed silence. Speak. The word thundered from the sacred statue, its stone features alive with ancient power. Still kneeling, Lawrence raised his head. Please, reveal the location of the pink Luna. That is not for you to ask. What? Lawrence's confusion twisted into barely suppressed resentment. The all-knowing statue, silent now of all times. Why? Because fate has set the pink Luna's path. I cannot and will not intervene. Lawrence's words died in his throat. If even the moon goddess would not help him, if fate could not be challenged, where did that leave him? Damn it, he muttered, fists clenched in powerless fury. If the sacred was unwilling, what hope did he have? That cursed rogue. Fate sided with Ezekiel? If that bastard grew even stronger, if he gained the pink Luna's power, he could rule the entire werewolf world. But just as despair took him, a voice cut through from behind. Wait, now that I think about it, wasn't Ezekiel the one who slaughtered that orphan's entire pack? Gamma Lewis's voice was thoughtful, eyes narrowed. And? Alpha Lawrence turned, chin so tight it looked ready to shatter, willing Louis to get to the point. Alexa, the Pink Luna, her parents died in that massacre thanks to Ezekiel. If she discovers the truth, they'll be enemies. Louis' lips curled into an eager smile. Let nature take its course. Once she finds out Ezekiel is the one who destroyed her family, the two of them will fight to the end. This isn't over for us. In fact, it could still swing our way. Chapter 14, Mysterious Power. Alexa's POV. Today was training day. As soon as I stepped outside, I spotted Ezekiel by the pond, fishing. Hey, I called out, heading over. Suddenly, splash. Ezekiel jumped up, muttering something under his breath, then smashed his fishing rod against the water. The force was ridiculous. A wave of cold pond water splashed all over me, soaking me from head to toe. My eyebrow twitched involuntarily. This man was infuriating. Did he really enjoy getting under my skin? Are you out of your mind, Ezekiel? Look at what you've done. Frustration laced my voice as I stomped my foot, glaring at him. He turned slowly, giving me that blank expression. Oh, I got you. What? He said flatly. My eyebrow throbbed in sheer irritation. I curled my fists, barely restraining myself. The way he talked so shamelessly, I wanted to strangle him. Still wearing that same deadpan stare, Ezekiel stood and faced me. This is your first training session. Getting wet. Getting what? You can't be serious. How is that a lesson? Heat climbed up my cheeks. What the hell did he mean by that? Why did it sound so wrong? He grinned, stepping closer. Yeah, let's really get you wet. My mind spun wildly. Was he really about to cross a line? I could hardly move, every part of me frozen up with dread and something else I didn't want to name. Was I seriously supposed to just stand here if he... Forget it. Here, take it. He stopped and pressed the fishing rod into my hands, eyes unreadable. You saw what I did, right? Now you try. Splash the water with this rod. My face must have been crimson. All that internal panic because of a fishing lesson? What was wrong with me? That's what you meant? I added, still embarrassed. Of course, he'd never say anything truly obscene, would he? Ezekiel tilted his head, lips quirking. Oh, and what tidbit did your imagination come up with? Words failed me. God, why was my mind always in the gutter? He raised an eyebrow, prodding further. Shut up, I shot back coolly, turning away instead of meeting his gaze. Swish. I lashed the rod out over the pond, expecting a huge wave. Nothing. Just a disappointing spray that barely got my feet wet. Where was the tidal splash Ezekiel had pulled off? Blinking in disbelief, I swung again, but all I produced was another feeble ripple. Gasping, growing more frustrated, a string of swings, each one weaker than before. Damn it! Why is this so difficult? Swoosh! Another splash, no better. I don't buy it. You must be cheating somehow. Furious, I turned on Ezekiel, trying to blame him for what I couldn't manage. What nonsense are you babbling? Isn't it clear you just don't have the skill or subtlety? No wonder you can't produce anything worth witnessing. Ezekiel scowled, his tone cold as ice. His words stung. I clenched my teeth, swallowing any retort. You're just making excuses, Alexa. I turned away and struck the water again, more out of spite than hope. Enough. Focus and calm down. I stilled. Feel your heartbeat. Tune into your blood and the slightest tremor in your muscles. Make the rod an extension of your own body, then strike. His instructions made me pause. Reluctantly, I closed my eyes and inhaled slow and deliberate. Breath by breath, I found my center, heartbeat thrumming, blood humming, something within me swelling like never before. I could feel a strange, immense energy deep inside, tingling through my veins, gathering in my hands. And then, swoosh! Kaboom. It was like a boulder smashing into the pond, its explosion of water, monumental, stunning, dwarfing even Ezekiel's previous effort. But the shockwave rolled right back at me, and I was swept up in the torrent, tossed through the air like a feather in a hurricane. What the hell? Where had that power come from? Relax. Ezekiel's voice cut through the noise. I barely realized he was there until I was safely in his arms, my body still trembling from the energy and the fall. We landed smoothly, and suddenly, I found myself cradled in his embrace like some helpless fairy tale heroine. Our eyes met, and a wide, victorious grin broke across my face. See that? My splash was much bigger than yours, I boasted, chin high as I eyed him. What do you think? Did I pass? Ezekiel shrugged, putting me carefully on my feet. Just barely, he drawled, ever unimpressed. My retort stalled in my throat. Everything spun out of focus, limbs shaky, vision blurry. My strength drained away as darkness closed in. Snap. I plunged straight into unconsciousness. Meanwhile, Ezekiel caught Alexa before she fully collapsed, just as he'd expected. Gently, he cradled her in his arms once more. His cyan eyes flickered with something unreadable as he regarded her unconscious face. Thoughts churned, until finally he whispered, confounded. How is this even possible? She's tapping into wolf power without even shifting. What the hell is happening? Alexa's astonishing whirlwind of strength still replayed vividly through his mind. No ordinary human, not even he himself in this form, could generate that kind of force. What unsettled him most? She seemed to channel her wolf's energy as easily in her human form. Was this another of the pink Luna's rumored gifts? He couldn't say for sure, but the revelation was deeply unsettling. He cradled her gently, gaze lingering. She's got more secrets than I realized. There's definitely more to her story.